okay? So that's state level, and local governments could follow that process and go ahead and continue with suspension of quorum physically present. But one of the things the governor has done over COVID is he has waited to the 11th hour to let local governments know whether or not there was going to be an extension. And you could have seen the local government attorneys just going crazy on the listservs that I'm on. We're going, oh my God, it expires in 11 hours. What is he doing? And of course, because we have to notice things because of the public records law, we have to notice our meetings. We have to make agendas available in a reasonable amount of time. We have to secure the room. We have to secure the technology time, you know? So we couldn't just wait and see what's the governor going to do. So what the Board of County Commissioners did is they adopted resolution number 20-182, which I believe was probably emailed out to you as well. We basically said, look, we're going to handle it this way because we need some surety in local government at the local level for our elected board as well as our advisory boards. So they decided to go with the quorum requirement to be physically present, but not everybody having to be here, okay? So before this point in time, it was very limited situations when you were allowed to have people Skyping in or appearing like this. It was very, very limited. That person who's not in this room, if they wanted to be a part of the meeting, had to be sick. Literally, that was the rule. They had to be too sick to attend the meeting, but they wanted to be part of the meeting. And that changed a little bit over time where individual boards, and I did this with the Tourist Development Council. Tourist Development Council decided that they had a chairperson who was going to be traveling during an upcoming meeting that was very, very important. So they decided to adopt a policy where they would allow, under the provisions of one Attorney General opinion, that the allowance to Skype into a meeting could be expanded for a good reason. And it was because our chair is not going to be here, we've adopted a policy now that if a member can't be present and they're not sick and it's a scheduling problem, we'll go ahead and let them participate. So that's kind of where we were up until the governor did his thing with the order, okay? So the Board of County Commissioners says, okay, we want a quorum present, which out of our county commissioners, that's 3 out of 5 had to be in the room, okay? And the other 2 could come in this way or be on the phone, okay? So because they chose to do it that way, it affected you all. So you had to have a quorum physically present. And you still have to have a quorum physically present because we're still operating under that particular resolution that's been extended by our board. Now, the other part that's interesting about this hybrid virtual thing is we said, we're gonna force you all to come in here and make a quorum, a minimum quorum, but we're not gonna let the public come in and get you sick. That's why we have these postal kiosks, listen to me. We have these computer kiosks in each of the places where we hold our meetings. There's one out in Dade City and there's one here in this room or this building. And that allows for the satisfaction of the Sunshine Law where you have to give the public an opportunity to participate, see what's going on, comment, and feel as though they're a part of the proceedings. We also allow for people to email comments and they could actually say in their email, and I want my comments read into the record, and the clerk will sit there and read them into the record. We also allow for people to phone in still, right? People can still phone in. They come in through view. Okay, so you can do this. So, I mean, and that's where we are right now. Like I said, the governor's order has expired. We're meeting the spirit of the law by forcing the actual physical quorum. We're meeting the health emergencies by allowing the virtual attendance of non-quorum members. And we're meeting the requirements, you know, of health, safety, welfare by saying to the public, you can't come in, but there's an alternative means. So you are not being in any way prohibited from participating in your government. So that's where we are. And the resolution I sent you, kind of page 2 is where the meat of all of that is. After page 2, it becomes the very detailed procedure that lays out to the public, these are the rules, this is the procedure, so that they have a roadmap to follow if they want to participate. And our board has protected itself from being accused of shutting out the public. That's why it's 8 pages long, frankly. Todd, do you have anything to add? I mean, from the IT perspective, I mean.
No, actually, a lot of people like it. I know we get a lot of public participation via WebEx because of COVID, and it's a lot more convenient. We've now opened up the door for more people to be able to participate. Yes. Maybe they couldn't get here, but they wanted to speak, and now they can. Mm-hmm. So you would have had to have been present.
And it's actually interesting too, because so many times people would say, but I work. How can I come and speak to my government when I'm working? I have to take off work. I have a babysitter, or I've got to, and people would really be upset, and they'd bring their kids in here with them because they couldn't get a babysitter or couldn't afford one, So it actually has expanded things. And I don't know what the future holds for the whole hybrid virtual thing, but right now we're operating legally,
My question is the county in any way considering changing or reversing that resolution? Because I can see no reason why any of us need to be in this room, especially with what we're learning now about the virus being able to aerosolize. And if you're in a room for close to an hour or more, you can get the virus just by sitting here, especially if there's somebody that's either not showing symptoms yet or they're asymptomatic and they have the virus. We could all be giving just like the public, we're keeping the public safe, but we're not keeping each other safe.
It is completely out of the board's hand. It's a Florida statute and it's a Florida Constitution that mandates the quorum. So the county commissioners have done the best that they can because they can't, literally the legislature will have to change the law next session. That's literally where we are. So we can't do business without a quorum physically present. Government just stops. You can't do business without it. So it's not the commissioners, it's Tallahassee you got to talk to about that.
So it's Tallahassee saying that Sharon's not present at this meeting?
That is up to Sharon. She's allowed to be here. She can be here. Everyone.
No, right now.
I'm virtually here.
Yeah, you're saying that the governor's saying that Sharon's not at this meeting now. She's not present at this meeting.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not at all what I'm saying.
The governor's saying you have to have a physical present quorum. So if you have 10 people, you have to have at least 7.
Oh, I understand the math. Don't get me wrong.
The governor can't change the statute either. He has to wait for the legislature to act.
We've had committees where the quorum didn't show up. They had the meeting anyway, but they couldn't vote on anything. Can't vote on the quorum. But if for whatever reason you said you were going to come and then you got into a car accident, God forbid, but then you couldn't make it. Well, now we don't have a quorum. We still continue to have a meeting, but we can't vote on anything because we don't have a physical quorum. Usually when everybody schedules these meetings, they reach out to everyone and say, can you be here? Can you be here? Can you be here? And people say, well, no, I have a scheduling conflict. No, I'm not comfortable. Then that's when Tammy would say, okay, well, not a quorum. What do you want to do? You don't want to have it because everybody's not comfortable. Right. And they don't want to show up.
I have a question. If before when you were speaking, you were discussing all these exemptions, why does that not apply here?
It's in the Constitution and it's in Florida statutes.
So
there are exemptions in statutes for public records. They're actually written there. The public records law, they're riddled with exemptions based upon certain circumstances. Like a police officer's address is not public record. He has to actually go to the property appraiser's office and whoever else might have his address and fill out the form. Social security numbers, they're public records, but they're exempt from disclosure. Okay, so when I say exempt, it's exempt from disclosure. It exists and it's there in the government realm, but we can't give it to you legally.
It just seems like a legal liability to have us in here. It
absolutely is.
And I give somebody this, am I liable or are they or the county liable for those that get COVID in this room?
Well, this is going through the courts as we speak.
I'm not sure how you exactly know when you get it, but I don't know.
I understand. I'm just asking if that's a hurdle down the road you're going to have to look at.
If Florida law says you have to be present, there has to be a quorum present. Does that necessarily mean me warming this chair, or can I be present the way Sharon is right now? No. Sharon is present at this meeting.
It's physically present. It's physically present.
The statute actually says physically present.
That's how it's construed. You have to have a quorum present. So
okay, this is Sharon. I have a question too.
Yeah. Just one question. Sharon, just 1 second and you're next.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, did you want to finish that thought?
Just basically that, just that technology has gone way beyond where the law is right now. And it's been like this. Text messages, for example. People delete them off their phone all the time. Those are public records if you're doing government business on your personal phone. It's like the law just has not kept up. And it's
Sharon, please go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I understand that analogy, but I'm not sure that it pertains to this one because, you know, a text message, once it's in the web, it's still in the web. And that's what people don't understand is it doesn't really. But my question was this. So when Governor DeSantis, you know, entered Executive Order 276, he kept, you know, expanding that. And he did it again on November 3rd. And there are several, you know, counties that have interpreted that to be, you know, it's section 4D, that they've interpreted that to the part that says performance of public work and taking whatever prudent action is necessary to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the community. They have been using virtual quorums. So I'm wondering how you're handling those inconsistencies.
I'm not familiar with the order you're referring to at all. So.
Executive Order 276?
I don't have it in front of me. I'm not familiar with it. I can't tell you how it would interpret that.
Okay, well, it's the novel coronavirus disease executive order that was originally passed, I think in March, and periodically he extends that. And then he didn't extend it, you're right, it expired on November 1st, and then he re-extended it for either 60 or 90 days on November 3rd.
Well, that's probably the order that declares the emergency. These are two separate things. Having a quorum and a declaration of a COVID.
No, it also suspends if you I think it might be a good thing to familiarize yourself with that order because it does address this in a general way. And so some areas have been interpreting this to mean that they can have remote, you know, as I'm remote because I'm at extremely high risk. I don't want to give up my position on this, you know, committee. So I'm lucky in that I can still participate, but I don't think it's fair that my colleagues are asked to be there too, particularly, you know, as Eva was pointing out, you know, what we know now about the virus and its transmissibility. And because we're at an all-time high in Florida with infection rates, you know, we passed 10,000 a day on Sunday.
We're leading the country. We're leading the country on new infections. Florida is. And just to get back to the present or absent.
So we just wanted to know why. Yeah.
Let me try to answer that question, please. Okay. If the governor extended an order that allows for some other rationale to be taken by the Board of County Commissioners, this is a resolution that they would have to adopt with the direction of the county attorney advising them. So I can't tell you what that means in Pasco County. It's not an order that I'm familiar with. I'm focusing only on the current board direction and explaining what the board's policy is.
Yeah. And we're really grateful for that. But we, you know, our question was why, in light of all of this, why was the board still, you know, kind of taking that direction? And particularly now when, you know, it does appear they have flexibility. That's all we were asking.
Yeah, I didn't get the question, so I'm not prepared to answer that question. So sorry, I can't help with that.
But I do have, I'll go back to the whether you're present physically or not. I have looked at the state law recently because I'm in another group. It's not a county group. And we were looking at our bylaws and whether we were allowed to have virtual meetings or not with our members and vote with virtual meetings without a physical presence. And when I look at state law, I don't see physical presence. I see the words say that there has to be present, a quorum has to be present. And I think with this technology we have, you know, on a phone, maybe not being able to see these people, not being able to record that they are present, that these people are present. And I think that it's reasonable to interpret that these people are present at this meeting and that if you have to have a quorum present, then you can be present on a screen just as easily as you're present sitting in this chair. And that's, I think, interpretation of state law that the county could.
Well, let me tell you how remember how I explained the AGO opinions of being able to allow for someone to Skype that was not sick and how the AGO, Attorney General Office, directed that local boards could decide a policy that allows a member to be absent and participate who had a scheduling conflict. They still have a quorum physically present. That is the last Attorney General on point on a quorum issue. So like I said, the law is behind technology. Potentially, maybe there are local governments out there right now that are petitioning the Attorney General to issue an opinion, looking at the issue and expanding the physically quorum. What does a physically present quorum mean? Because that has always been the interpretation as together in the same room. So that's not something that the Board of County Commissioners can modify or change. They have no authority to do so.
Well, I understand, and I'm not trying to argue, and I appreciate you coming here to talk to us, but the way I read it was the state law didn't say physically present. It said present.
But
you had to have a quorum present.
That has been the interpretation historically. So
sure,
you've got it's an uphill battle, and I don't think our Board of County Commissioners is looking at that matter right now. No, I'm not aware of. Then again, I haven't discussed this issue with the county attorney since this order was issued by our board, this resolution, I mean. So this is the procedure that's been set. It doesn't mean it can't be changed, but it's certainly not something that I have the power to do. And it's certainly something that would take some research and deliberation amongst the county attorney, as well as the board itself, and looking at other folks around us and how they're conducting meetings before I think they would make any changes to that resolution as it stands now. Okay.
Elizabeth, if the committee members wanted to voice their concerns to the board, what would you think is the best way for them to do that? Or how would they get their voice heard?
You can always individually email your commissioners, all of the commissioners. You can certainly send emails to the county attorney, county administrator. You can ask Tammy to raise the issue to the county administrator or her chain of command. There may be other advisory committees out there, because we've got a lot in the county, frankly. There may be others out there with the very same concerns, and the Board of County Commissioners, when they set policies, they have to include you all in the fold of that as well. It's just so it's a one size fits all for the most part in that regard. And MPO had to go and do their own procedures because they're a separate board, but because they're the top of the umbrella here, and everyone is working as an advisory body to them, appointed by them, so they have the procedural rules, so forth, that most advisory boards follow. So, and there's it's not something you shouldn't bring up. You have serious concerns, and I all do. It's certainly worth looking into, trying to get your voices heard in that regard.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry, this is Sharon again. I've been a state employee for more than 25 years, and we are all working remotely, and I participate on boards, committees, faculty. We are voting with, remote quorums. So are we, do I have to tell the USF legal department that we're out of compliance with the Sunshine Law?
The Sunshine Law applies to government entities. So I don't know if those are government entities that you're referring to.
Yes, they are. Yeah, we get Sunshine Law briefings periodically all the time.
I don't know. That's up to the opinion of your attorneys on those boards. I can only do what my board has said.
Yeah. Okay. I thank you. I'm genuinely confused myself because I'm thinking maybe, I need to raise this because it sounds like you're pretty convicted, and maybe our guys have taken, the wrong interpretation. I don't know.
Well, I know in the bylaws that I just submitted to a national group it's a dog club. I said that I read Florida law as present. I don't see physically, that word's not there. I read present, and if present is present, Sharon's present, I believe that our club should be able to have a virtual meeting and vote with a quorum that's present, whether that's all virtual or a couple of us are somewhere with a computer, whatever it is. The quorum is present because they are present.
Florida
and that's
Sunshine,
how we're interpreting
Florida
that.
Sunshine
We're not
Law
government.
Applies to Florida governments, correct. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. So that's all I can do. And I work for the Board of County Commissioners, and this is their resolution. This is their procedure. So you want to have it changed, definitely you need to go above me.
So to do that, do we
Way
need to
above me.
pass a motion to ask staff to reach out to the board, county commissioners to look at this or address this? Is that the next step?
If you'd like to do a motion, you could do a motion.
I don't know if I have to, or if I could just say, can we reach out to them? Because I think there is obviously concern here with the board.
I don't know your formalities. I don't know what things give rise to a level of emotion, or if you just do what they ask.
I basically do what they ask. If you wanted to make it more formal, I suppose you could do a motion, but you saying it in this meeting, I will bring it up to my superiors who can then ask the county administrator.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we appreciate that
We would
because
appreciate
I
it.
think, I made the decision to come tonight to make the physical quorum. I'm not going to do it again. And I wasn't able to use the WebEx. I tried before and I ended up on the phone and I was muted most of the time and couldn't speak. So, and I mean, I think that I would advise everybody in this room not to come again. And the environmental lands program will just die until we all get vaccinated, because it just doesn't make sense that we are here in this room, breathing each other's little tiny droplets. And, I don't know. I mean, the chances are good that nobody here is sick. I don't see anybody coughing or wheezing, but it's still a possibility. And it's something that's not necessary. And in my opinion, even based on Florida law, I don't think it is. So I think, yes, absolutely. It would be wonderful if that could be brought to other people's attention and try to move it up the line if it's possible. I mean, it doesn't say physical. So present is present. And I think anybody could justify that Sharon's present at this meeting. So yeah, I think it's worth at least making that argument if we can, and see if it might change some minds, because it's, with numbers going up, and Florida is leading of all 50 states. We have the highest number of cases than any other state in the country. So it's kind of nutty that we would have us sitting in this room when technology would allow us to not do that.
Elizabeth, do you have anything to add to your presentation?
I don't. I wish I had better answers for you all. But yeah, I want you to definitely reach out to your commissioners. Let your concerns be known. That's what it's about.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions before we release Elizabeth so she can go home?
But thank you very much.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure to see all of you again, and the new faces too. It's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We're ready for the Duke Exchange update.
Nothing personal.
No.
Okay, good. Good.
My job.
So we're going to go back in time here a little bit to kind of do an update. So the red portion of this property is what ELAMP purchased in approximately 2012. That was the Bailey's Bluff property. The purple area around it was what was deeded over to the Parks Department initially. And so as you can see by these boundaries, the ELAMP property was approximately 110 acres that were uplands, and the park property was approximately 205 acres. About 153 of those were uplands and approximately 53 were wetlands. Kind of fast forward a little bit, we did a land exchange and a land purchase with Duke Energy. So the project was to purchase the existing property, which is Anclote River Park, and 14 acres to the north of Anclote River Park, which is that property in blue, and swap out the portion that is in red, which comprised of partly parkland and Bailey's Bluff property that was ELAMP property. After the swap, this was pretty much what was left over for the park or for the department as a whole. So that was kind of a mixture of the two properties with the portion that was cut out for Duke Energy. Initially, when this was brought back to you guys, what we had proposed was we wanted to make ELAMP a whole again. So since ELAMP purchased approximately 110 upland acres, we wanted to do some rearranging of the property to make sure that ELAMP ended up with at least 110 acres of uplands, which when we initially discussed it, we kind of redrew it, and it ended up with ELAMP having 159 acres total, but it was 111 acres upland, which is what they paid for. And it was about 85 acres that was left over for the park property. And then this is kind of some of the breakdown that shows what's wetland and what's upland between the two parcels. And then in this photo, or in this slide, you can kind of see the land use land cover of the different habitats. So the park property was primarily some mixed hardwood area with some open cropland. The Bailey's Bluff portion was about 43 acres of kind of open pasture disturbed area and some mixed hardwood. Kind of continue to fast forward. This yellow line is the coastal Anclote Trail that connects the Pinellas Trail through this portion of Pasco County. It is a paved multi-use trail. And so this is kind of the route that it traverses this property. You can kind of see it hovered kind of both in between those two lines. And so that was the portion. The trail is not officially open to the public, but it is pretty much complete. The public is out there utilizing it right now, but it will be, there's a little bit more construction to be done before it is officially open. So what we had discussed was with this property, as I mentioned previously, we wanted to make sure that we protected as much of this property as possible. So initially the idea was this portion is going to be parkland and this portion is going to be ELAMP land. But what we wanted to do, instead of have this divide in this property, we kind of wanted one property that was all protected to the best of its ability. So we went out there, and what we wanted to do was figure out, obviously the coastal Anclote Trail is paved trail, so that's recreation. So we wanted to take that portion out. And we looked at the property and we were trying to figure out which portions of the property have the most disturbed areas, because those are going to be the best portions of this property to develop for recreation and protect as much of the natural systems and natural habitats as possible. So when we went out there with the land management team, we kind of mapped everything out. So those kind of squiggly lines you see throughout, that's for the most part that paved coastal Anclote Trail, which is maintained by the Parks Department. And those two kind of purple big blobs that you see, those are the areas that we kind of figured were disturbed, and it would be great for that to be where the recreation components are. And so we kind of came up with this idea of this map as a whole, of this is what the property would look like. So the green area is kind of a low impact RV campground, and the day use area is kind of like a low impact where your shelters and pavilions and, those kinds of aspects are. So for the most part, the property as a whole would have some nature trails just like the ELAMP properties have. And your two heavy areas where your most impact for recreation would be in your RV campground and in your day use area. And the rest of it would be basically considered conservation. So
I have a quick question. I hate to interrupt, but where that trail is going, the paved trail, could you go back to the first slide you had that showed where that was? So the yellow is the paved trail?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I don't think it's correct then on the next drawing. It's going into that wooded area. You see the kind of a light.
See this little bump right here?
That piece kind of in the middle that goes out.
This right here?
It's kind of, that looks to me like it goes further out than it does on the next drawing.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely need to update that for sure.
So just something I noticed when looking at it.
So then the idea would basically be, and we'll make sure that that trail map is buffered correctly to make sure that the acreage match. So the idea would be, if this purple area was where all the recreation aspects would be, that would basically make it 42 acres of recreation on the property. And then the rest would be considered conservation, which is what ELAMP would be responsible for, which is a total of 202 total acres. And then this is kind of what the property would be. So the idea would be, instead of having kind of two separate entities with some magical line, because in natural resources, we obviously want to make sure that whether it's ELAMP or passive parks, we utilize the property to the best of our ability and protect however much we can. We kind of decided maybe this property should be treated as a whole instead of kind of having a divide and have to disturb or impact some of these better habitat sections, just because we want to protect everything on the other side. So we kind of looked at it from a habitat perspective instead on what we wanted to do for the property. And so the idea is to kind of bring this back to ELASC and kind of have a conversation with you guys on what your thoughts are on kind of what our current plan is for the Bailey's Bluff property as it stands. Are you guys okay with this plan? Are there any changes you would like? Any suggestions? Those kinds of things.
So we initially brought it to you, if you remember, back last October, a year ago. And that we brought with the idea that we were going to just swap 110 acres out. So now we're bringing it back to you with more 202?
Yeah.
Acreage that we would conserve. So we're pretty happy with it as, as staff members, because we feel that we found a really good balance of utilizing it and even getting even more conservation land than we initially had anticipated.
Do you have a map that shows where this is in the bigger, larger perspective?
Google Earth kind of map.
Yeah.
I could pull up Pasco view.
Yeah. Yeah, let me pull up Pasco map.
While you're doing that, maybe you can, what is the, if we're allowed to know, what the plan is for the land swap? What is Duke going to build there? Is that going to affect any of the recreational aspects of the park that we're planning?
So they are keeping their options open. They did a land use change. They went through a comprehensive plan amendment to make it, I think they did it industrial. So they want to have the ability to extend their plant out there. And that's the property that we traded, right? That we used to own, but we traded, but it's so degraded out there. In terms of how it would impact this plan, I think that they planned it where it wouldn't matter really what they did there. But Duke certainly has all the rights to do whatever they want with that piece of property.
The access road from Bailey's Bluff and follows the property just seems logical that it would be easier to go through the Duke property. I didn't know if there was an option.
So let me go. Hold on. Let me stop sharing Pasco Mapper and we'll go back to the PowerPoint. I'm just gonna share the screen so I don't have to keep toggling back and forth. But where is the last? So if we look at this last map right here, right here on this corner by the entrance of the trail, that's where we would come in. So the road access in for the property would come in right on that juncture because it is also right across the street from the Anclote Golf Park. Okay. So that's where the gray line is where basically a road for the park amenities would come in. And then this brown road is going to be basically like a dirt road or a shell road. We want it to be a low impact campground. We have one at Withlacoochee River Park where nothing is paved in our campground. Everything is either millings or dirt road or shell. Same thing with Starkey, same thing with Cruise Lake. So we want to keep that kind of low impact camping, through all of our areas, especially this one where it's, a mixed use of conservation and then recreation.
And I think too, since Duke has that property off there to the west, I think that's part of the reason that they plan to put the day use area right next to that. and then the low impact RV campground further away. So it would
If
be a
you're
little bit more
camping, you
remote.
have even more of a buffer between whatever Duke decides to put on their side. So that's kind of why we ended up shifting that campground to that other disturbed area to kind of just allow for a little bit more buffer with the campers.
Does this impact the current Anclote Park or Key Vista Park in any way? Does
This plan itself, the way that this trade impacted it is that as a swap for this land that we gave up, we now own in fee simple Anclote River Park.
Okay.
Prior, we leased it.
Okay,
So now we actually own it. Plus we own the 14 acres north of it.
thank you.
And it does not impact Key Vista. I mean, the trail connects
Yes.
Anclote River Park, Anclote Golf
Yes.
Park, and Key Vista. So that the coastal trail, the yellow line, connects all those parks with this property.
Yes.
But it doesn't, this property would be managed either concurrently with Key Vista, but it doesn't impact anything, with that park.
Thank
itself.
you. Thank you.
Hearing acreage wise, it sounds good for the environmental lands program, but if I was sitting in a parks meeting and they were showing this property as a new park with camping, RV camping and day use, and look at the trails, and it would look just like a big park instead of a land preserve. So I think it could be a slippery slope. Is there some way that this could be very clearly labeled as a exception, not any way leading to something that could be happening on other preserves that we have? I mean, what's the difference between this and now Parks buying a chunk out of the middle of one of our other preserves and putting a campground on it?
You get into that?
I mean, I can. So we talked about some of the other things that we can do on this property. So we talked about possibly doing a restrictive covenant over the ELAMP portion to make sure that we make sure it's only hiking trails and nothing like that. And we still protect sensitive habitat and only allow trails where they warrant or using existing access ways. So there are other things that we can put on the conservation side to make sure that it just stays conservation and it doesn't get added more and more, recreation component on there.
Mm-hmm. But not just that. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and that would be good, but it is just appearances. It is a park inside of an environmental lands project. And do we want that to be something that's acceptable in the future for any other environmental lands piece that we want to buy? Hey, let's put a park in the middle of that. I mean, look, there's this disturbed area in the center. Let's put a park there. Let's put camping and cabins, and then the rest can be environmental lands. I mean, that doesn't seem like a good future. I don't know, just a thought.
Correct. And I think in this instance, because it was such almost like kind of initially half and half mixture between parkland already and ELAMP, it kind of was there.
Mm-hmm.
We have a similar situation in some of our other parks, like Cruise Lake Park. There's adjacent property, but the park is already established. So it's something where, we can look at seeing in certain aspects based on the habitat that's out there, adding public access per se via hiking, could be allowed in some portions of it, but not in all. So I think in this instance, because the property itself hadn't been, it was kind of just there with both aspects. We wanted to do something that it kind of activated the property as a whole. So right now, the land management team and poor code enforcement and all these people are having to go out there to patrol because it's just the amount of illegal dumping and four-wheelers going out there. So we wanted to do something that if we added people to it and added conservation to it, if we kind of activated the property, we felt like that was one way that we could protect it in the long run.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I'm not saying I'm looking at the plan and saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it's could lead to, somehow it needs to be presented as something that's truly exceptional and, may never happen again. And it's just my opinion.
Maybe we maybe we look at naming it something that lends it to be more of a preserve, that might be helpful. Just an idea.
No, I understand what Eva's saying, though. I mean, you look at this map and you don't think ELAMP property. You know, it doesn't, you know, it looks more like a park, the whole thing, you know, with the campground, especially for RVs.
No, and I mean, I can definitely understand how you would see that. I know we have kind of a variety of ELAMP properties. So, you know, the Upper Cody, for example, we have a playground at the Upper Cody. It's a small one, but we do have some amenities in that one versus other ELAMP properties where, you know, like Arapika Sandhills, where it's just a parking lot and access to the property. So we do have a variety of access and amenities on our ELAMP properties as a whole. But those properties are more just ELAMP by themselves. They don't have other public lands kind of surrounding it.
Right. And there are those of us who don't think there should be any amenities on the preserved lands.
Correct.
It should be a place to park and a way to walk in, and then you can do what you want while you're out there. Because we're preserving the land. We're not making parks. That's what Parks Department is for.
Correct.
Oh, wait, we're in the Parks Department. But sorry, I'm just being sarcastic. But yeah, I just think it needs to be out there that it's
Correct.
a super exceptional thing. I mean, I don't know. I'd love to have my RV right there and I could sit and relax and go for a nice walk in the preserve. Sounds nice, but then it starts to sound like a park too.
Correct.
Is this what is going to happen next in the process? Where are we in the process with this?
So once we get feedback from you guys, whether this works or whether we need to tweak it or whatever we need to do, basically the next step would be for the county to submit a budget proposal to basically kind of create this or make this happen. So the county would contract out with some firm to kind of create an actual site plan versus just the concept plan of what the park itself is going to be. And we would figure out team who would manage it, staff, resources, kind of package the whole thing. And that would be submitted as a budget proposal to be able to then kind of build it and manage the property.
Are you anticipating this in 2021? Is that where you think this is headed?
So right now we are in budget year FY21.
Yes.
So we would submit this as a budget proposal for fiscal year 22.
Thank you.
A money question. Will the Environmental Lands Program have to pay? Okay, good.
No.
Okay.
So it would basically, all the recreation component and the staff managing it and all that would be all park property or park land or park managed, with obviously the land management team doing resource management and all that aspect on the conservation land with assistance from the park staff there. But it would basically be a park funded thing.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee? All right, thank you for that update. Now we can move on to the Heasley property.
Okay, that's me.
Sorry, our computers restarted in the middle of today's meeting, everybody's.
All right. So Heasley property. I'm gonna go, I'm the wrong. Let's see here. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so the Heasley property, final review. So I'm gonna go super quick over all of this information that we went over the last meeting. I got a lot of feedback from you that no reason to read it a second time. You paid attention. So if at any time that you need me to stop, just let me know and I'll stop on a slide, okay? Otherwise, I'm gonna go to the new stuff. So 18 acres, 2 parcels on State Road 52 in Land O'Lakes. It is in our ecological corridor. Here are the ecological corridor objectives quickly. Here's the location. So it's right next to our Upper Cody property. in the corridor, you can see that the dashed line is the corridor. This is our Project Arthur property. So you can see it abuts 2 of our ELAM properties and is in the corridor, again, about 18 acres. Wanted to show this map. This is new. This shows where the large mammal wildlife crossing will go. So you see it's right near this area, okay? And then my next picture shows you the wildlife crossing. It's actually in construction right now. It looks a little bit different now. It's a little bit more covered, but if you wanted to drive by there and drive slowly and carefully because the traffic is crazy, which I guess proves why we need that wildlife corridor there, right? So you can see that, but that's right near that property.
Go through at 5 o'clock. You'll be driving slow enough to see it.
That is very
Or in the
true.
morning commute.
Yes.
All right, so these next slides I'm going to go through quickly. Here's the little wetland there. Let me know if you need me to stop. Zoned agricultural. The surrounding properties are zoned residential, but I do know that developer has purchased this area here. No surprise, we're right on the corner of State Road 52 and 41. Integrated wildlife habitat ranking system. You can see Upper Cody scores pretty highly here. No surprise there. It's preserved land, biodiversity. All right, so here are some pictures from our site visit. This is the category 3 wetland that's on the property. And this is some of the upland. I do want to say, so this owner, and I told the scientific subcommittee when I was out there, so I'll tell you in full sunshine law fashion here to let everybody know. So this parcel was part of a larger parcel. And what happened was the owner of the parcel passed away. It went into probate. I reached out to them and said, hey, we're interested in this. One of the siblings was interested in working with me a little bit more than the other sibling. The sibling who was interested in working with us went through the process of splitting the parcel in half to make sure that she had control of everything that was in the corridor and that she would make sure that she would nominate it to us. There was quite a bit of trash out here. I spoke with her, told her that it would be better if she could get most of it, if not all of it, removed. And a significant amount, if not almost all of it, was off when we went out there. There's a little bit remaining, but a lot of it is off. So just wanted to share those intentions with you from the landowner, which I thought was important. And it is something that I shared with the scientific site committee when we were out there. So I was asked during our visit out there too to provide some aerials so you could see what that little wetland looked like through time. So I'll just pause here and I'll let you take that in and ask any questions if you'd like. You can see, it was more open at one point. It looks like it's a little bit more covered with vegetation now, although that could be the difference in the black and white photograph versus colored as well.
There appears in 1967 to be a home in that. Is that what we saw that was removed?
There
Where the
was,
telephone
yeah.
pole was at?
Yeah, exactly.
That's no longer there.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that was there the first time I went out there and has since been removed.
So it does, even in 1967, it looks like it had been manipulated by somebody. Looks like they dug out that northern end of the wetland, maybe to make a fishing hole or something.
Perhaps. You're good. I'm going to move on.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay. I like these historical aerials. I think they're interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so consistency with ELAMP objectives. It's in the corridor. It's not in an EPU. It's not in the ag reserve. It's adjacent to public land, conservation land, which is Upper Cody and Project Arthur. There is a high risk of development. I can say that for sure because I've been called about it myself. Protection of natural communities, yes. Connection, yes. Conservation of viable populations of native plants and animals, and all the rest, yes. And what is something to point out too is that since it is next to Upper Cody, there is a potential to extend the trails and manage it the same way that we're managing Upper Cody. So here's the good stuff. Okay, so the scores. All right, so connectivity 5, value of buffering 4, and there was actually 4 members that went out there. So these are the average scores of 4 members. Value of buffering, I would suggest we install a gate on the access road between the 2 properties for management use only. Good buffer along potentially busy area. Habitat fragmentation and patching is 3. This parcel is adjacent to an existing preserve that is over 100 acres, so I don't believe its size should be looked at alone. Scored a little higher since it would connect to existing property in the corridor. So we had 2 members who were thinking along the same lines there. Edge effect 4. Of course, because it is part of the larger conservation area that we already own. Habitat quality 2.8, disturbance 2.8, upland, the north side, understory is disturbed, wetland historically disturbed, west side looks okay. Community rarity 2.3, common but disappearing quick. Biodiversity 3, uplands and wetlands. Exotic undesirable species 2.3, Caesar weed in the understory, uplands and wetland all had nuisance exotics, but worth the time and effort to remove. Protected species presence 3. A small gopher tortoise burrow was noted on the adjacent property. I did not see any on this property, but they could use it. Listed wading birds could use the interior wetland marsh. Great location for an animal undercrossing along State Road 52, which caveat, yes, we're doing that. Hope with our existing property, this was already in the plans with the widening of State Road 52. Gopher tortoise, wading birds. Wetlands and water quality 3.0. Difficult to tell if the water quality has been impacted by the trash and debris piles on the property. Install a culvert so water can move between the 2 properties to the Cody River. Water currently washes across the dirt access road only during high hydrological cycle periods. Adequate buffer to wetlands 2.8. The internal wetland has little buffer on the east side. However, the parcel itself adds the buffer to the riverine wetlands. Aquifer recharge 2.3. Geological resources 1. Management potential 3.8. Additional debris removal is needed. Weedy species present and will likely proliferate after debris removal is complete. Good access can walk spray. Restoration needs 3.0. Understory needs restoration, but easily accessible and probably readily managed. Areas where debris or buildings were removed need to be maintained to prevent nuisance species cover from becoming difficult to control. So we have an average score of 47.8. And now we can discuss it.
All right. Is there any discussion from members of the committee? Any comments, questions?
I just had one about the access road. Did we follow up on that? And if there is a gate or?
So the road itself, there is a utilities easement there, so they have the right to use that road, but there are neighbors in the area that are using that road who should not be. And so our land management team is on that to enforce it. And it's on the property own.
We blocked that off today, actually. We re-fenced where the neighbors were coming through and signed it.
Thanks, Matt. Great timing.
Any other questions, comments? All right, shall we take a vote then? Do you need our vote to recommend the site for addition to the acquisition list? And since we're partly remote and partly present, should we do it by voice vote?
Do we need
a
movement to do that?
we do.
Or
We will need a motion to recommend the site for addition to the acquisition list.
So moved.
We have
a second.
a second by Ms. Bailey. All right, all in favor?
You got a roll call vote.
Oh, the roll call vote, we're not all present physically. All right, would the clerk read the roll call?
Miss Eva Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Mac Davis?
Aye.
Miss Patty Fesmire? Is she on? Miss Patty Fesmire?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon Hannah West,
Yes.
Ms. Janice Howie,
Yes.
Cole Jr.,
Prime Minister Abiy won the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize for reaching long-awaited spiritual.
okay. Mr. Clark Hall Jr.,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Mona Neville,
Yes.
Dr. Chris Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Josh McCart,
Yes.
and Acting Chairman, Ms. Joanne Hurley.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. It has been recommended that we take this site for addition to our acquisition list. Is there any other business to come before the committee by any member of the committee? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.